So, unfortunately, we were not able to go to Mobile, Alabama. But if next year the NFL wants to hook us up with some tickets and some hotel stays over the few days that the practices and the games are, we'd love to go and take some time off from our college experience. Or maybe we can go through college, Alex. We'll have to see how that goes. But anyway, for right now, we weren't able to go to Mobile, Alabama. So we used our best knowledge of other opinions, and we were able to gather some info. And out of that info, we were able to gather via Twitter, and obviously not just looking at some random things, but some video clips that were there from the Senior Bowl, and some people that are good at this stuff and know what they're doing, some draft reporters and so on. And we looked at some standouts from the Senior Bowl week, obviously concerning the Giants' needs. So that means we're not going to be going over like the top quarterbacks, although there were not really any top quarterbacks because all of them pretty much did not do well this past week, but it more goes over the Giants' needs and maybe some depth positions as well. We have a couple running backs in here. Why is that? Well, right now the backup running back for the New York Giants is Gary Brightwell, which I'm not going to say he's trash. He did pretty good in the time that he was in the season, but that's just an example of, the Giants might need some depth at running back if they don't bring back Matt Breida, who is an unrestricted free agent this offseason. So again, no order specifically. We just have guys and we have a couple notes on them. Alex, you have any opening thoughts before we kind of go into this?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say about the Senior Bowl is that it's a really, really good chance for some of these guys from smaller schools. I'm not necessarily the smallest schools, but, just running through our list here, looking at certain guys. For example, here, I'm trying to find a good example. All right, here's the best one I can find right now. Isaiah Land from Florida A&M, not maybe your most, thought of school when you're thinking of college, football and prospects here, but he's a guy who maybe didn't play the best competition usually, but now when all these guys are coming together and it's kind of the best against the best, you can really see, who's really at that level, who's really not at that level, where they can play and how they can play. So I think overall, the Senior Bowl's a really, really underrated. I think from the outside perspective, not among NFL GMs and scouts, because I do think you always see all the big names there watching the Senior Bowl. But in terms of maybe the outside public who's more inclined by the Combine, I think the Senior Bowl you get a lot more out of than you even do the Combine, despite the Combine obviously having a ton more players than the Senior Bowl has. But, the practices are obviously the most important. And then the game itself is kind of fun to see what, all these players would look like in a game setting. So overall, I think it's a really, really good, judge for a whole bunch of different prospects. And a lot of times you start looking at these guys early on, and then you could kind of see their development, whether it gets to the Combine and then to their pro days, et cetera, even as a player, just through this small draft process.
Yeah, and Joe Shane actually with his company were there. A lot of guys were sent to Mobile, Alabama. They were all wearing the Tough, Strong, Dependable, I believe is the order that shirt or sweatshirt or whatever goes in that the Giants, front office there we're kind of rocking with, which is Joe Shane's motto. It was exciting to see them. And I would like to say this, Alex. We were talking earlier in the episode about how our content is going to be pretty good. Well, I remember actually in research to this, seeing what we did last year and comparing the content to now. It was you. I wasn't there for some reason. Maybe you were just free, filming a 5-minute video about the Senior Bowl last year, which was mainly just talking about the quarterbacks. And Malik Willis, if you remember him, he was at the Senior Bowl last year. Yeah. And that was it. So we've already upped the content because we're talking about a bunch more players than just like the three that were like Sam Howell, Malik Willis, and there was like one other guy, maybe Sam Ellinger at that point.
No idea. Don't remember.
Been. But
I feel like Ellinger was the year before. Who knows, though?
Oh, whatever. We're stepping it up. That's all I'm trying to say here.
Upgrades, so people. Upgrades.
In no particular order, we're going to start out with wide receiver Michael Wilson out of Stanford. He's 6'1", 216 pounds. He was actually named the best pass catcher at the Senior Bowl by PFF. Specifically, Alex, it was our guy, former guest on this podcast, Trevor Sikkema, who came on last year. We're hoping to have him back on again for draft coverage, who actually helped name him on his show the best pass catcher at the Senior Bowl. Wilson was. He caught 4 passes for a game-high 76 yards on Saturday, including the game-sealing touchdown in the fourth quarter. I guess we'll rotate every 2 because, it's kind of quick notes here. The second guy we have on the list here, running back Evan Hull. Hull, I think it's pronounced Hull. from Northwestern, 5'10", 214-pound running back. He finished with a game-high 74 yards. No one else had more than 40 yards in that game on only 10 carries. He also caught the ball on both of his targets for 11 yards. He carried the ball 5 times, 41 yards on the opening drive, and then later shed multiple tackles on an inside run for about 18 yards. Alex, you got the next two?
Yeah, all right. So moving on now to running back TJ Spears out of Tulane, a school that's really starting to produce a lot more high quality players for the draft than they have in the past. So big ups to their program, really improving. 5'10", 204, and he has just outstanding quickness. He was great all week in the team drills. He had great tempo and vision with electric feet. And really with this guy, you're getting a great receiving threat. Along with the running back threat, out of the backfield. He's a guy who runs routes almost as good as a wide receiver, has good hands as well. So he's going to be a guy that I think, almost a Nyheim Hines type player where he can really do good stuff.
Already have the NFL comparisons.
I already have the NFL comparisons. This is actually the guy I've done the most research on so far. Yeah. So
and valid. I do believe. Sorry, that he was the top running back wise. Top running back out of the Senior Bowl. Definitely the guy to watch out for out of all of these running backs in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, so overall, I think for a team possibly even like the Giants, where they already have a great runner in Saquon Barkley, a different change of pace here with Spears, I think certainly could be great, especially as a third down back out of the backfield. So certainly interesting there. Linebacker Avon Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati, 5'10", 231, actually transferred to Cincinnati from Miami of Ohio. Pace had a game-high 10 tackles and was pretty much everywhere during the Senior Bowl game, I guess you can say, per se. Has abilities out on the edge, rushing the passer, along with playing on the inside. So overall, a nice flexible piece, but still kind of unknown of where his best position is on the defensive side. But he's a little bit he doesn't really have the length to play the edge rusher position, but he's also a little small as a linebacker. So it's going to be interesting to see how his career pans out.
At this moment, do we know where Spears is projected in the draft? Oh, okay, 6th round is what I just found from NFL Draft Boss. So it could be a very good day 3 pickup for the Giants, but definitely was the number 1 running back coming out of the Senior Bowl. We move on to the next guy here, edge rusher Isaiah Land from Florida A&M. 6'3", 226 pounds. He played at inside linebacker and edge rusher during the week's practice. I believe he mainly plays edge. The coaches there wanted him to expand himself a little bit, his versatility maybe, and played a bit of inside linebacker. He during the game at least he played edge, as that is what was his main position in college at Florida A&M. He actually got a big sack late in the game. It's interesting to see how his draft process goes because he's a tall Fred at 6'3", but he needs to put on more weight to become a big part of an NFL defense off the edge. He's going to be facing big offensive linemen, big offensive tackles, and being 6'3", 226. If you look at the guy behind him, who Alex, you just talked about, Pace out of Cincinnati, he's a linebacker. He's only 5'10", and he weighs more than Land. So remember, Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati, linebacker, 5'10", 231, and then Isaiah Land out of Florida A&M is 6'3", 226 pounds. So he's 5 pounds lower, yet he's about, 5 inches taller around there. So you're going to have to bulk up a little bit if you want to play, on an NFL team, especially if you want to play against NFL offensive tackles off the edge. So we'll have to see if he bulks up. But again, another standout guy from these practices at the Senior Bowl and the game itself. Did I only do one? I might have only did one. No, I only did one. Cornerback Julius Brents out of Kansas State. 6'3", 202 pounds. He's loose and fluid for a big player at the position. That's the quote I got from Daniel Jeremiah. Now you can go to the next person, Alex.
All right, moving on now to linebacker Deion Henley out of Washington State. 6'2", 232 pounds. He's really a great guy in coverage, instinctive out of the backfield, going into the backfield as well. And he can really keep up with some of the faster guys, whether that be out of the backfield or in coverage. And he really is kind of your typical sideline to sideline linebacker. So definitely has great potential to be a very solid player in the NFL. And I think he could possibly sneak into day 2. Looks like he's more of a day 3, early day 3 guy at the current projections. Obviously, ton changes as we get to the combine and pro days as well. Moving on now to edge Will McDonald out of Iowa State. He's 6'3", 236 pounds. He is probably the best pure pass rusher at the Senior Bowl, and he is just a freak athlete. He's quick. He's athletic. He's got a great vertical. His length is great, and he's probably going to be one of the better players coming out of this Senior Bowl, and he's projected to go pretty early on day 2. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, and he's going to put up some great numbers at the combine.
Yeah, Alex, I think you had the luck of getting both of the back-to-back best players at their respective position in the Senior Bowl. And he first started out with Henley out of Washington State. For many reporters who were there, they stated that Henley was a great guy there and was probably the best linebacker at the Senior Bowl. I keep on wanting to say combine, but at the Senior Bowl. And that's a big thing to note. I saw also some people linking him with the Giants, saying he would be a good fit there. I mean, obviously the Giants need a linebacker, so it's a pretty good place to put him at. So that's that there. And then McDonald, the same thing, the best edge. And you said that, the best edge, according to NFL Network, the best pure pass rusher that was at the Senior Bowl. We move on to the next player here. This is this is strong, tough, dependable, whatever it is. The quote that Joe Shane likes to use. This is the guy right here. Center John Michael Smits, I think is how you pronounce it, out of Minnesota. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. This is because he is, I think, like a 5th or a 6th year guy coming out of college now. He's been a senior for a little bit longer than most, but he was most consistent offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl. You can tell because of how old he is, how much time he's had in college football to kind of develop, but old and dependable. He might have been the most consistent player overall. Strong, powerful, and tough were the words that I used to describe him from seeing him on tape and from what I read from other reporters. But that's also who I heard of from the Talking Giants guys. That's just that. I think it was Bobby Skinner, who's obviously the offensive line guy for them. Played it in college and in high school. That was the position he played, so he knows the position well. He said that the Smith, I can't even say it, Smith. John. I'm going to say John. John, played really well at the position throughout the Senior Bowl and was kind of just the most consistent guy just because probably he's older and he's like that 5th or 6th year senior. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking about him there because I can't even pronounce his name correctly and go to the next guy here, which is the very good wide receiver Jaden Reed, who performed well for Michigan State, 6 foot, 185 pounds. He won many reps cleanly during one-on-ones and separation. That was the key. And he got that a few different ways, from whether it was subtle hesitation, body fakes, and a skilled throttle to tempo corners off his route path is what I got from The Athletic. And Reed, and again, I'm quoting the Talking Giants guys here because they were there, but what they basically were saying was that this is just a consistent wide receiver 2 or 3 in the NFL, kind of comparing him a little bit, this is what I'm doing, comparing him a little bit to Darius Slayton maybe, where he just consistently will get that 600, 700 yards every season in the NFL consistently for 3 to 5 straight seasons. So again, not your number one threat, probably a guy that will go later in this draft, but someone that's dependable, and that's someone like Jaden Reed.
All right, moving on to probably, I feel like we've been saying this over and over again, but one of the best players at the Senior Bowl, Osiris Torrance out of Florida. He's 6'5", 337 pounds, but plays the guard position. So he's an interesting one because usually when you get to that 6'5" or above range, you're usually looking at a tackle here. But he is actually a pure guard who's played 4 years, 4-year starter for Florida, didn't surrender a single sack his whole career. And his just dominance as a run blocker was, very much seen at the Senior Bowl as well. And he has strong hands. He's very quick laterally, despite his huge size and frame. So he's projected to go in the first round, and I'm excited to see where he goes. The Giants do need interior offensive line help. Do I think will this guy even possibly get to the Giants at 25? Who even knows? But he's an elite run blocker with all the tools to potentially be an elite pass blocker as well. So really excited to see where he ends up. And then moving on to the next player I have here is cornerback Darius Rush out of South Carolina. He's 6'1", 196 pounds, perfect size pretty much for a corner. And he was surprisingly good. Not a lot of people expected it, I guess you can say. He was just consistently solid in all the practices. And he was just making it a really tough time for all the receivers. And he actually got up to 21 miles per hour at the Senior Bowl, which is pretty impressive as well. And he's a guy who can definitely bring the blitz off the edge as well. And his tackling skills and play recognition is something that gives him, something that's a little bit different from some of the other corners in this class and at the Senior Bowl.
All right, so I got a couple things on each of these guys. So Torrance was actually mocked to the New York Giants recently. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Bucky Brooks's first, then NFL Network first 1.0 mock draft. But Torrance was definitely mocked to the New York Giants in one of the most recent kind of big first-round mock drafts. So that's something to note there, I guess. But yeah, first-round talent. And then Rush, the 21 miles an hour, that was the fastest clocked time from any of the players at the Senior Bowl. So that's a stat.
Impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. And then the final guy we have here, someone we haven't covered position-wise, tight end. The Giants probably need a tight end, as their backup there is Nick Vannett, I guess you could say, behind Daniel Bellinger. There we go. Tight end Payne Durham from Purdue. He had an insane touchdown catch in double coverage. He also has a quick release, and he has good hands, which makes him an explosive pass catcher. And he also does a good job blocking, and that's what you need in the NFL. Tight ends in the NFL, they have to be good blockers. It starts with that. Honestly, some teams even value in their tight end blocking first before pass catching. Unless you're looking at a guy on the Jacksonville Jaguars like Evan Ingram, former New York Giant, who is more used as wide receiver. You look at the top tight ends in the NFL, like Travis Kelce, like George Kittle. Those guys, yes, they make insane plays when they catch the ball. They are also very good blockers. So Payne Durham shows that right there. He can do a good job blocking in the run game. He was also quite efficient during the Senior Bowl in the passing game as well. So that is the tight end that we have listed. And then, Alex, you have anything on Durham? Because you added him, so.
Yeah, I mean, Durham in general, this tight end class is really strong. Some of these experts are saying that it could possibly be 2 to 3 to possibly even 4 tight ends in the first round. Which is something that we haven't seen in a while. Obviously, we had Kyle Pitts a couple years back, who's an elite talent. Fortunately, he's stuck in Atlanta and hasn't really been able to show it yet, but he's certainly an elite talent. And I think, you've got Mayer from Notre Dame, who's going to be going really high up, and Durham potentially is raising his value here with his really good performance in the Senior Bowl. So exciting to see how this tight end position ends up in the draft. And for the Giants, you already got Daniel Bellinger, but if you can complement him with another nice tight end, maybe in the mid rounds here, don't think Durham's going to get that far, unfortunately. It could be a nice, another option for Daniel Jones in the passing game.
And then finally, it's important to note, or kind of interesting to note, I guess you could say, the New York Giants have Princeton wide receiver Andre Yeshivas on their radar. Quote, I've known about him since early December, Joe Shane told the New York Daily News, because of Odell Beckham's agent, Zeke Sandu, I guess it's how you pronounce his name, I'm not 100%, brought him up, which that's interesting that Odell Beckham's agent is bringing up another wide receiver, unless he's also Yeshivash's agent. Yeah, I don't know for sure. But anyway, he said, and I thought he showed up well yesterday, being the Senior Bowl. He's a big, good-looking kid, and he caught the ball well. According to the Draft Network, Yoshivash is an All-American track star for Princeton with a 6.71 60-meter and a 39-inch vertical at 6'3", 200 pounds. The Princeton wide receiver might actually look to break the NFL's scouting combine 40-yard dash record, although he's projected to go late in the draft, 4th, 5th, or 6th round, maybe a day 3 guy you're looking at there. It would be cool if he breaks the 40-yard dash record. We all love the 40-yard dash, even though it means nothing when it comes to football. Really, if you think about it,
they should really make them. I've been saying this every year. You got to make them run the 40-yard dash and do all these drills in pads, then make it realistic. There you go.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the 40-yard dash is really just like a celebrity contest. Like, it's just like who can run faster, but it really has nothing to do. I would definitely say that the other drills help. I mean, the bench press, it shows strength. maybe, but those two between the bench press and the 40-yard dash are the least kind of NFL worthy type of drills. But definitely like the pass catching one where the wide receivers are kind of running down the field. I mean, that shows their ability to pass catch because
the gauntlet. Yeah, it's a good drill.
Yeah, it is a good drill. But anyway, so that would be cool. But what I've been reading about him though is he is a track star, so he's not really, not saying he's not focused on football. He's very good at football, but he still needs to learn the wide receiver position more and more, as all youngsters do and college football players do. Obviously, they can always improve and learn more, but I think he's got a long way to go to becoming a receiver in the NFL and a consistent quality receiver at that. And that is, do you have any final thoughts on the Senior Bowl?
Not really, to be honest. I think there's a lot of good players here this year. Maybe not the same quality of players that we saw last year in terms of some more high profile guys, but I think there was certainly a nice mix here and certainly a lot of guys who helped their draft stock.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Alex. I mean, really exciting stuff from the Senior Bowl, and it's kind of cool as our first start to the 2023 offseason that we're already getting into these college draft prospects in early February. It's getting me amped up, and I'm really excited heading towards the NFL draft.